All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to week number 10. That's right, week number 10 of your 9407 class, which is your Intellectual Freedom and Its Discontents class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. J.S.K. Austin, and today, believe it or not, this really will be a shorter check-in video. This one should be 15 minutes or less, and that is largely because there's not really much that I want or need to say. I've got a couple state of the course updates, and then I'm just going to say a few quick words about this week's module and this week's discussion related to Seattle Public Library. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. And yeah, so this should be 15 minutes at the most. So let's get into these state of the course updates really quick. First of all, okay, so the challenged and banned book reports are now in. Part of the reason why I wanted you, or part of the reason why I want to have a shorter check-in video this week is because I do want you all to take a look at these if you can make the time. Now, I know a lot of you are very, very busy, so this is not required reading. However, it is suggested reading. The reason why I make these a discussion board prompt instead of something that you turn in just to me is because it does help you all to know what books have been challenged and banned and why. And this isn't an exhaustive list by any means. There are hundreds of books that are regularly challenged or banned, but these are some of the ones that I knew that my students would be able to find research on or find sources on so that they could put together their book reports. So what I want you all to do from here is I would like for you all to go through these and just kind of read over them. You don't have to commit it to memory. You will not be quizzed on this or anything like that, but these book reports, if you all can review them, this will give you an opportunity to know about these titles and why they are banned, why they are challenged, and from there you can, you can enter discussions with other librarians and be kind of informed on these things because you've heard about it before and all that sort of good stuff. So yeah, that's the reason why the assignment is done the way it is, and I hope that you all will take the time to look over these. If you don't have time this week, then of course they're going to remain up for the rest of the semester. Maybe there will be no school the week of Thanksgiving, and so perhaps Thanksgiving might be a week that, if you're interested, you could make this leisure reading for that week. But again, it's not required, but I would like for you all to take a look at it because it can be very helpful to know these sorts of things. The second thing that I am going to talk about is the prompt for that project that I was telling you all about that I said I was going to have in the class last Thursday, and I still don't have it in there, but it will be in this week. But I can go ahead and tell you all exactly what you are going to do and why, so you can hear that. And I will get that prompt up at some point this week, but I need to make a few more adjustments to the prompt and that sort of thing, which I'm going to do. So what that assignment is going to end up being, and again, let me kind of go in here so that you all can see what I'm actually talking about. So again, this scroll. This 12-point intellectual freedom project, this is actually going to be very, very easy for you all. What you all are going to have to do is, you're going to write a letter, and you can write it, probably, I would prefer that you write it in Word, but you can also just write it into email text, I guess, if you want. But what you're going to do is you are going to and you can use Google News, you can use the intellectual freedom stuff, intellectual freedom digest stuff that I've been sending from the Office of Intellectual Freedom that I've been posting in this class and those sorts of things. But you can just Google around and you'll find something. But what I want you to do is write an advocacy letter, but you don't have to mail the letter off or email the letter off. So here's what you're going to do. And this is going to, I'm just going to come out and say it. You all are basically serving as informing me on how to do this assignment for future classes. So I know that kind of sucks because I don't want to call you all guinea pigs. You're definitely human beings. But in this case, I am using you all in an experimental role. So what you're going to do is you are going to write your advocacy letter. It should probably be 2 pages at the most, 1 to 2 pages probably. And you are going to address that letter to either a library board or a library or a city council, or a representative on a city council or a representative on a school board or something, but you're going to address it to a specific person, and you are going to advocate for or against, because this is intellectual freedom. So I want to give you all the intellectual freedom to pursue the method that you want to, even though I'm hoping that you won't be in favor of any book bans. But if you want to advocate for a book ban, that is totally your right and your privilege as an American, and please, by all means, do it. But what you're going to do is you're going to write a letter. So you're going to identify somewhere where a book controversy took place, and you are going to write a letter advocating for that book's removal, or advocating against that book's removal, or some way. You're basically, what you're going to do is you are going to write an advocacy letter. And then what you're going to do is you do not actually have to send the letter off, but that will probably be what future classes have to do. But what I want you to do after you write your advocacy letter is to then tell me your thoughts about why you would or would not actually feel comfortable sending that letter off as a student. Okay, and one thing that you would do is, you all are library science students, so you should be given some respect in regard to your views of what is going on in libraries. The same way I've known law students who were definitely, they would bring up that they were law students as they were doing some sort of advocacy or something, and people would respect that and be like, oh, okay, this person's going to be a lawyer, they know a thing or two about law, they're in law school, so I'm going to respect the knowledge that they're dropping, right? So that's pretty much it. What I'm going to have you do is, and that's going to be probably 12 easy points. But again, what you're going to do, and I'll have the prompt up again at some point this week, but you were going to write a letter, and then you were going to take the time to tell me whether or not you would feel comfortable actually sending that letter out or not, and explaining to me why you would or would not do that. And that will, this feedback will help me determine how I'm going to create an advocacy assignment for my future classes, because I have to, I'm basically using you all to gauge what students may or may not be comfortable with. And so I know that sounds a little ugh, but this is what this is the best approach for me, as far as doing something that I know my students can do without feeling intense discomfort or something of that nature. Okay, so that prompt will be coming soon, but know that that's what you're going to have to do, and that's probably not going to take you long. It's probably going to take you just a few hours at the most, and that should again be 12 easy points. I'm probably going to make it due sometime around you're still going to have plenty of time, but it's probably going to be due perhaps on December the 4th. That might be when I make it due, but it might be a little earlier. But you will have plenty of time to get the assignment done, and that's what really, really counts, okay? So the last thing that I am going to talk about today is, I'm going to talk a little bit about our module, and specifically really about our topic this week. So our topic this week is dealing with something that I don't speak out a whole lot on, and that's going to be, we are mainly talking about meeting spaces and programming at libraries, and particularly at public libraries, but we are specifically using as an example a big blow up of a situation that happened with the Seattle Public Library. And I don't really want to say a whole lot in regard to this, because I don't want to sway y'all one way or the other. I want to see what you all put in the discussion post, but this was a very, very, very big deal when it dropped. People are actually there are librarians who are still talking about this, but when it dropped, when it happened, it just took the library field by storm, and everybody was going crazy about it. Now, what I want to say about this is, first of all, I'm very serious about what you see here. This is a very touchy subject. When we talk about feminism, and when we talk about gender identity, and when we talk about quote-unquote TERFs and these sorts of things, these discussions have the potential to get really ugly really fast. And I do not want ugly discussions in my classroom. We can disagree, and we can disagree candidly, and we can disagree with flair. We can do that. But what you still cannot do in this intellectual freedom class, what you cannot do is you cannot make ad hominem attacks on your classmates. So even if you, like for instance, for those of you who are, I don't know a word to use, so I'm just going to say anti-turf. If you feel very strongly against trans exclusionary radical feminist rhetoric, if you feel very strongly against it and that sort of thing, I understand, I appreciate that, but at the same time, what I don't want you to do is just go in and just start calling your classmates, transphobes or something like that. You don't need to do that. Or, if you are somebody who, well, that example probably takes care of it. I don't need to belabor the point. All I'm going to say is, again, personal attacks are a no-go. So do not call a classmate a turf. Do not call a classmate a transphobe, regardless of what they say on this. If you can't civilly disagree without applying a label like that to a classmate, then just respond to a different classmate, please. What I want you all to attack are the arguments and not so much the person making them, okay? And we devolve into personal attacks in the library field way, way, way too often. But what I don't want is for my class to be a training ground for that, okay? So that's the basics of that. Now, as far as my personal opinion on what happened, I am going to take a minority opinion here and say that, well, first of all, I have to be respectful and say that I have no idea what those workers were feeling, what they went through. Workers were saying that they felt unsafe because of this program and that sort of thing, and that is a legitimate concern. But so I know my position is going to be unpopular, but I'm going to go ahead and come out with my position. And my position with this is that this highlights to me why we need some form of a definition of what hate speech is. Because I would say that even if hate speech were to be protected by the First Amendment, I don't necessarily, once we actually have a working definition of hate speech and what is hate speech and what isn't, then I think it makes it easier for libraries to say, well, this is hate speech, and this type of hate speech may make our community members feel uncomfortable, so we're not going to allow it. I know that people aren't going to like what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it. Because we don't have that definition for hate speech, I feel, then becomes a thing that's like in the eye of the beholder, if that makes sense. So some people would look at what Wolf did as hate speech, and then some people would not. And if there is it's one thing when you have a near consensus or when reasonable people for the most part agree, but with something like this, you actually have a lot of varied opinions. And I think that when you have a lot of varied opinions and you don't have a working definition on the federal level of what hate speech is, so you can't necessarily say we're not going to allow hate speech here because it makes our patrons uncomfortable. I think what you're left with in these situations is, quite frankly, a situation where you might have to allow the program to go. That does not mean that I agree with the people who are doing the program. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is I think that we're hindered by not having a definition of what hate speech is or what a hate group is. When we don't have that, then it makes it difficult to regulate who can and cannot use the library for programming or for spaces due to quote unquote hate. Now I would relay this back to, okay, I am going to go over 15 minutes again. I do this every single time, but this will probably be 17 minutes, not 20. One thing that I do want to quickly just bring up is that, relating it back from gender to race, because I'm not, as a heterosexual cisgender male, I'm not on the traditionally disenfranchised framing of those issues, but when it comes to race as a black person, I am. So I'm going to replace wolf with the KKK here. And this does not mean that I'm equating these groups. I'm not doing that at all, because I know somebody might be like, yo, Dr. Jace just equated wolf to the KKK. No, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying that I need to use a group that's known for racial issues as opposed to gender issues in order to actually really illustrate the point that I want to make. So when it comes to the Ku Klux Klan, and I've actually, just also as a disclaimer, I'm from an area that still has the Ku Klux Klan listed in the phone book in 2022. I'm not making that up. In my hometown phone book in North Carolina, the Ku Klux Klan is listed. Their number is right there. You can call them, and I have called them. They don't actually pick up the phone. They leave a message, and then they have a message for you, and then you can leave a voicemail, but they don't actually pick up the phone. You can just, they'll call you back if they want, but they've never called me back. But having said that, yeah, I've actually helped a known Ku Klux Klan member when I was doing my internship at the public library in Henderson, North Carolina. Tony Finch is his name, and he's out, so I don't feel uncomfortable naming him. But yeah, I assisted Tony. He was a Klan member, and he was looking for information about the law in North Carolina. I think he was actually hoping to sue somebody, and I had to assist him with that, and I did. And he shook my hand, and it was one of the weirdest experiences of my life, but I had to get through it. But again, what I would say is, even though 100% of people who are familiar with it, sorry, I've got a baby crying, I'll be back. Yeah, so even though 100% of people that are familiar with the Ku Klux Klan would probably call them a hate group, because the government does not actually define what a hate group is or what hate speech is, you know, even though 100% of people would call the Ku Klux Klan a hate group, or maybe 98%, but very close to 100%, even though they would do that because the government doesn't declare them a hate group. Again, I know this would be very unpopular, but I would say I would not keep them out of the library if they actually reserve the library space for programming. I would not keep them out, because then what am I using to determine whether or not they are a hate group? Now, I do have a little bit of a leeway out of this, because I do think that the Ku Klux Klan is identified by the government as a terrorist organization. I might be totally wrong about that, but I think I've read that before. Someone can fact check me if I'm wrong, then by all means, let me know. But I do think that it is totally okay to say that, okay, entity identified as a terrorist organization can be kept out of the library, because that's a terrorist organization. It exists to strike terror in people. But if they're not identified that and they're just seen as a hate group, I don't know if I can keep them out. And their ideas, as you might imagine, are very, very counter to what I believe in. Okay, so I do want to just put that out there, but you know, I'm not necessarily saying that Seattle Public Library was right or wrong. I'm certainly not going to trivialize the concerns of any staff members who felt unsafe or anything like that. But I really think that we need a definition for hate groups and hate speech and that sort of thing. I really think that that's what we need in order to really make the case that some of these groups do not belong in our facilities. So I'm going to leave it there. So yeah, I am keeping it under 20 minutes. I apologize that it did go over the 15 minutes, but you know how it is. Sometimes you just got to talk things out. But anyway, I am Dr. Jace, and I would say that being part of a hate group is a disgrace. So I don't know how else to put it. I will see you all next week with a different check-in video. Have a wonderful week.